Welcome to the Business Growth Masterclass, where business growth is made simple. Listen as we interview real business owners and learn from their wins, their losses, and everything in between. Today's guest is a serial entrepreneur and current CEO and partner at Boost Patients, a specialized business that focuses on new patient lead follow-up for medical practices nationwide. He's a serial entrepreneur, so he owns Flatland Works, a digital marketing agency. He has run for public office. He even owns a local favorite coffee shop, Sugar Browns. And so without further ado, welcome to the podcast, Mr. Kade Wilcox.
Thanks for having me. Maybe we shouldn't have mentioned the coffee shop. Now, half the people, now that they know I own it, might not come back. So hopefully that hasn't run our progress.
You don't mean that.
Yeah.
Every time I go to the location on Indiana is like packed full of regulars.
Yeah. No, I think it's just a classic neighborhood coffee shop. And the cool thing about Sugar Browns is, do you know Justin Bernard? Did you know Justin before he passed away? Died suddenly a couple of years ago.
No.
One of the most creative entrepreneurs you've ever met. He started Sugar Browns in 2004.
Okay.
And I first tried buying it from him in 2014. And so when we started about a year ago trying to buy it again, I looked at my original email. It was October 14th, 2014. And to now own it all these years later, in honor of him, really, I mean, he was a phenomenal entrepreneur. He owned West Crust Pizza.
Yeah.
His entire concept. I mean, named it, branded it, decorated it, built the menu. He's phenomenal. He had a co-working space. I believe it was called Tumbleweed Co-working. I can't remember the exact name, but he had co-working spaces before co-working spaces were a thing. He's amazing, dude. So anyway, long story. That's a long-winded way of saying I'm really excited to own Sugar Browns with my best friend, Landon Sheets. So.
Dang. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that's a recent thing.
We took it over December 1st, 2024. So
awesome.
Yeah. My little girl, she's 14. We started going there about 3 years ago, every Saturday for 3 hours. And one day she said, we should buy Sugar Browns. And I'm like, done. And so we started talking to Mo, the former owner, and it worked out. So now she works there Tuesday. She's 14, goes to KPA, works there on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and, learning how to work. And she absolutely loves it. So it's been fun thing to do with my little girl.
Wow. Okay. Passion project with your daughter.
Yep.
How is that?
I
know it's fresh. But
I always struggled when my kids were little because I'm not really like the fun dad, like roll around on the floor and play. And I never was any good at that. But the older they get, the more things we can do together. And this is a prime example. And so, literally she gets home from school. So until high school, KPA is only 3 days a week. And then you do school at home Tuesday, Thursdays. It's a classical education, university model, just like college, but they're 14 and 12. So she gets home from school on Mondays, does school till late in the evening, sometimes late until night, gets ahead for Tuesday, goes to work from 8 to 1, gets home at 1 o'clock and has to get right back busy to school. So, to be a 14-year-old, 8th grader, kind of having to learn how to manage your time, manage your schoolwork, learning from people at the coffee shop. She's really enjoyed, they're all much older, obviously. And so getting to learn from people like that, observing people, having conversations with adults, people asking about drinks and not having the answer and having to navigate, not knowing and, how do you serve them and answer is wonderful. And so I absolutely love it. Sometimes I go up there and just watch her work and just, it's just amazing to see your kid mature and grow and learn. And I personally think that, business is one of many ways that they can learn all those types of things, time management, how to deal with people, how to talk and communicate. It's the only reason I wanted to buy it is so my kids could have like a really creative and fun and kind of risk-free environment to learn how to work. Their lives are very easy. And so between KPA and working, it's about the only difficulty or friction they have. And so it's been wonderful. Yeah, it's fun.
Wow. Dude, that's the dream.
I think so. I spent the last 15 years hoping that my kids would work in one of our businesses or want to start their own business. Totally cool if they go to college. Totally cool if they don't. And if they don't, I think starting their own business and being their own boss is, I'm pretty biased. I can't imagine being an employee anymore after all this freedom and creativity and being able to create things. And so I secretly hope that's the path that goes down. But it's fun to do it in this small little expression of the coffee shop.
Man, that makes me think there's so many stories. I think of like Drayton McLean. We were talking about him and how before he started his career, that his dad kind of shipped him all over the US working for different entrepreneurs in different industries just to learn how the world works and how different people solve different problems. That's the dream.
Yeah.
Like
I think so.
As a dad,
for sure.
That's amazing.
Yep, for sure.
Okay. The intro that I stumbled through, you're an entrepreneur. Your day-to-day is different every day. Kind of give us the lay of the land. Like, what does your day-to-day look like? What do you do for a living?
Yeah, I'm not good at very many things, but I do feel very confident and capable at three primary things. I love growing revenue. I love building teams and cultures, and I love problem solving. And so I think for a long time, I would wear too many hats and try to swerve in and out of too many lanes and, to a varying degree of, success. But that's just the older I've gotten and the longer I've been able to do this. And also through a lot of trial and error, I've experienced a lot of failure. And over the course of that, I've just kind of identified these three things that I actually think I'm really good at, that God gave me the unique gifting to do these three things. So oftentimes people are like, well, how do you have, 4 jobs, 5 jobs, 3 jobs or whatever? And it's like, well, it sounds like it in when you just say it out loud, but I only do 3 things and I do them very, very well. And I think, and I really enjoy it. Like I wake up thinking about it, go to bed thinking about it. I love it. I mean, I get tremendous amounts of joy using my gifts in those 3 ways, serving the Lord and serving people. And it took a long time to kind of get there. But yeah, that's what I do. It's what I do for Boost. It's what I do for Flatland. We have a small nonprofit. It's what I do for the nonprofit. It's what I do to, a smaller degree with the coffee shop being, pretty small and more of like just a fun project with my best friend and my kids. But I do those 3 things, and I could do those 3 things for 1 thing or 10 things and be perfectly happy. So,
okay. The 3 things: grow
revenue, build teams and culture, and solve problems. Yep.
Okay. How, of course, those 3 things are like the recipe for an entrepreneur. Like that's your job.
Yeah.
Like go and do that. And so I guess practically speaking, can you kind of practically what does it look like to grow revenue? How do you do that?
I've always been responsible for sales. So regardless of what company we own or start, I'm always responsible for sales. I mean, for years, I remember at Primitive, I bet we tried hiring 3 or 4 different people to kind of take over sales as we bought other companies and got busy and tried to grow more aggressively. We just tried all kinds of different ways to grow, and it just never worked. And it just simply never worked. And so I've just always been responsible for growing revenue. I think I'm very good at it. I'm not like a salesperson. It's all relational sales. It's all just building trust and adding value. And if it turns out there's a way we can work together, then great. And it's just a 14-year track record of being able to do that. And since becoming a partner at Boost, we've onboarded almost 30 new clients since last April, April 1st. And so it's just always kind of had a knack for being able to build relationships and identify the goals and objectives and the needs of the company. And then if our services happen to provide value or solve a unique problem they have, then it's a great match. And I'm able to articulate that clearly. I'm a simpleton, so I don't typically make things, complicated or complex. And so, that's practically, what it looks like, whether it's a marketing agency, whether it's Boost, whether it's building grant funding for our nonprofit. I've just always really enjoyed sales. And I think it's primarily because I love understanding the goals and objectives of the client. I love kind of, creating a vision and a dream and a roadmap for, okay, well, how could we go from A to Z, based on what they're trying to accomplish. And then also just being honest whether or not we are capable of providing that service. Like I don't typically sell something we can't do, right? And so I think it builds some trust and credibility. Now, I say that, and there are times where, we're building the airplane, while we're flying it. But that practically is what it's looked like all these years.
Okay. I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, when you start, you're wearing all the hats, you're doing all the things. And there's like a period of like self-discovery of like, what am I good at? What do I need to be doing? What do I need to delegate? How do I build a team to do that well, rather than just abdicating all the responsibility? And so can you kind of, obviously there's a journey here with your story. Can you kind of, through that story, kind of tell us, how did you learn what you're good at?
Yeah, I think that's the beauty about being an entrepreneur is you get to create whatever you want. The very nature of being an entrepreneur is a creator. You have a vision, you have a desire, you have a goal, you want to accomplish something, and you get to dictate and decide, how you're going to do that. And the beauty about being an entrepreneur, it's not a one size fits all. You can be an entrepreneur and not be really, really good at sales. Now, I think regardless of whether you're good or not, you have to be responsible initially for sales because no one can build your own vision. But if you don't naturally gravitate towards that, you can gravitate towards being more of an operator than the builder or the visionary. And so to me, the beauty of an entrepreneur is you get to dictate that. And so if you gravitate towards more details and operational type things, then that's kind of where you can find your seat. So long as you have the ability to build a team of people who can do some of these other things that either you don't enjoy or you're not any good at. And so that's the first thing I would say. You're the entrepreneur, you're the creator, you get to decide what you want to do. And then I think you alluded to it, it takes a long time. I don't think most of the time within, 1 or 2 or 3 years, all of a sudden you have it completely dialed in terms of what you're good at and what you're not good at. I think you called it self-discovery. And I think there's probably a lot of truth there. I grew up in a coach's home. And so I've just always by nature been coachable because I was born in a gym and my mom was a coach and she's my favorite human. And so typically listen to her. And I think that translated, into business and entrepreneurship. And so I think just being self-aware and, kind of being coachable, not just from other people and their insights, but even from your success and failure and looking at what worked and looking at what didn't work and then adjusting, how you approach things accordingly. And, 14 years in now, I would say I'm way better at that adjusting, that self-awareness, that being aware of what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, and even being content with the things I'm not good at and just really like releasing those things for other people who are good at it to be good at. And so I don't know that there's a magic formula other than getting your hands messy, going for broke. We say all the time at Boost, no gas, all gas, no brakes, all gas, no brakes. And that's kind of how I've approached the last 14 years. And I think when you do that, you learn as you go and you adjust according to that success and failure. And so long as you're committed to getting better and better and better and observing those things and being aware and, learning from the failure, I think it's an evolution of finding your role and your place. I think a lot of people give up too early, before they even realize, oh, I'm good at this, I'm not good at that. And take some of those early failures and those early losses as an indicator, oh, maybe this isn't for me. It's like, well, maybe you're just not being, persistent enough and sticking with it long enough. So
something stuck out to me that you articulated was that you're better at self-awareness today than you were 14 years ago. And I just think of, those moments that you wake up in the middle of the night and you like your brain just randomly thinks of something stupid you said or something embarrassing you did 20 years ago.
Sure.
You're like, what was I thinking? And I think the persistence to keep going, because a lot of it just takes experience and it takes reps and knowing when you're an idiot.
Yeah.
When you're getting in your own way, when you're in everybody else's way, that you have to earn that. You have to earn that self-awareness. And I think over time, as you get better at that, I think it makes you more empathetic of other people and you can kind of assume the best.
Sure.
Because we're all unaware of ourselves. We're all, doing the best we can. Most people are not malicious. It's just, we're unaware of how we
Yeah.
come across. And
Yeah.
so Boost, I butchered what Boost does. Can you kind of describe in layman's terms,
Sure.
like what does Boost do?
Yeah, Maddie and Jonah started in 2018, and literally from its inception, its singular goal and focus has been to basically be outsourced sales team for private practice elective surgeons. And so they started out in the bariatric space. And literally they just built some technology and automation that a new lead would come in, and their automation and their content and their technology would follow up and nurture these leads to consult. Whereas the staff in the clinic, they're wearing 5 hats, the phone's ringing off the hook. They're not responding to those new patient leads very quickly, and therefore they're not capturing those opportunities to book a consult and grow surgery volume. So it started out with some basic technology and automation. Is very simple. Now it's a lot more sophisticated, but the singular thing that we do and the goal, the problem that we solve for clinics, as we're following up with your new patient leads. So we have some really good conversational AI that will respond in 60 seconds, send out text messages from our system, emails from our systems. Everything's personalized. Everything's conversational. In other words, it's not copy and paste and cookie cutter from one clinic to the next. And then our human touch is our patient concierge agents who will call a new patient within 10 minutes. And then we'll do that forever with the single goal of booking consultations, because once a patient gets in front of that doctor, his team, her team are going to be able to serve the patient, figure out what they need. So we were in bariatrics for a long time, and still are. That market took a major hit over the last couple of years with GLP-1s and peptides and all that stuff. I mean, volume across the country down 50%, 75% in terms of surgery. And so that industry has changed, but we're still very strong there. And then we've just kind of blown up in ophthalmology. So like refractive. So LASIK, cataract, ICL, RLE, all refractive surgeries. Got some orthodontic clinics. So we do high ticket kind of elective type procedures. It's phenomenal. It's the best business I've ever been a part of. I mean, what Maddie and Jonah built is quite remarkable, and feel extremely fortunate to be a partner and the CEO. And we're growing like crazy. We have a phenomenal team. We have really an international team. So we have a handful of us here in the States, and then probably 25 teammates across the country, from Pakistan to Kenya to a really strong presence in Mexico. So to build a technology company that's in the service business, working with medical practices, with a very diverse team. I mean, it is quite exhilarating and a lot of fun, honestly.
How did you get into that?
So I lost Primitive in 2022. So my wife and I started our first company and never forget it. I sent the first invoice October 1st, 2011 for $500 to Moore County Hospital via a free version of FreshBooks. And so we got our first company rolling in 2011. Lost it due, just to some serious challenges with my business partner in 2022. And just kind of needed to rebuild. Had several other companies, but they were very small. So it's not like I was starting completely over. By God's grace, had a few things I could depend on, but really had an opportunity to figure out, okay, well, what am I going to do? First, out of necessity, I needed to replace over half my income. And so it's very, very challenging 2 years for a variety of reasons. And so spent a couple of years trying to buy some other digital marketing agencies. Got really close on 2 of them, just didn't pan out. One sold to a larger agency in Denver, one sold to a private equity group. And so I just couldn't kind of get those agencies across the finish line of a non-compete that's almost over. And so one was in the Northeast. Actually, both of them were in the Northeast. And so tried to do that and thought that would be good because I've spent 14 years building marketing agencies. Didn't work out. And so when the PE company bought the one agency that I was just certain I was going to get and lead, it was a $4 million agency. So real excited about it, was planning on doing that and building it and growing it and all that good stuff. When the PE company ended up acquiring it, it just happened that Maddie and Jonah were a little burned out and trying to figure out what to do with Boost. This is on the tail end of 2023, where the bariatric market was really struggling. We hadn't gotten into ophthalmology quite yet. I think we had one ophthalmology client, and they're just kind of burned out, needed some kind of fresh blood to put to work. And, I was available and hungry and eager. Maddie is one of my best friends. So we went to school together. So we've known each other for 25 years. He's been a part of every entrepreneurial, endeavor I've had. I've been a part of his. And so a high level of trust. I mean, it's really hard to hire a CEO from the outside. And so this was not like that. I mean, we've known each other for 25 years. I've known about Boost and every, win and loss they've had. And so it was really just kind of natural. And so, I'm a partner now and the CEO, and it's been the biggest blessing of my life. I mean, it's a remarkable business. And I'm just very fortunate that Maddie and Jonah trusted me, and we've been able to kind of do what we're doing. We're so excited about Boost we can hardly sleep. I mean, we really believe we'll be a $10 to $15 million company in the next 3 to 5 years because of the seriousness of the problem that we solve for private practices. I mean, I've always hated niche businesses, mainly because I didn't have any, not because I knew what I was talking about, but for years, Maddie would say, when we were growing Primitive, man, have you ever thought about focusing? Like, have you ever thought about niching? And, that ship always felt like it had already sailed for us. We already had, 50 clients in 15 different industries. It just seemed hard to kind of go backwards, And so this is the first time I've ever experienced a business that is hyper focused on, we do one thing for one type of client. And it is extraordinary and honestly, very easy to sell. Going back to growing revenue, it's just easy to sell because you do one thing, you do it better than anybody else, and you do it for one pain point. And that pain point happens to be shared, I'm going to say, by over 90% of private practice, elective surgery, type offerings. And so I don't know, it feels like a rocket ship. It's an absolute blast.
All right. There's so much there. I want to hit this before kind of zooming out. The niching down, that's such, as a business owner, that's terrifying.
I agree.
You're like, I don't want to shrink the pie. Like I want to sell to everybody.
Right. I want to be all things to all people.
And maybe you can speak to this, but there's a lot of, I just finished a book, reread it because it's been on my mind a lot lately. It's called Small Giants by Bo Burlingham or something like that. But the main concept from the book is just, most people when they start a business, it's just grow. How big can we make this thing? And they're so from Jurassic Park, they're so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they don't stop to think if they should. And that's important, for what? I want to grow and get all of this revenue. I want to take revenue to 10 million, to 20 million, to 30 million. And in reality, you might take it to 30 million, but all of the stress, all of the, it's not excellent. And then the profit, it might be 10%. Whereas if you niche down and get really excellent at something you're passionate about, something that there's a real need and that you have the, time, talent, and treasure to solve, the profit margins are different. Right. And you can, as you get excellent at it, you can fine tune the machine that, maybe that same $3 million profit in a $30 million business, you can get with a $12 million revenue business.
Sure.
And that's a hard concept for a business owner to hear, but it's just.
Yeah. I would never go as far as to say that everyone should niche and, there should only be niche businesses or, businesses that maybe are kind of far and wide in terms of their service offering or the kind of clients they serve or work with or industries or whatever. I mean, there are certainly businesses who do it well, make a lot of money. It works well for them, whatever. So I would never say it's a one size fits all. Second thing I would say, at least in my experience, is if you go down that path of being kind of everything, all things to all people, I found it almost virtually impossible to, re-steer the ship. I mean, for years we tried to build out some like vertical expertise and just could never really get to it because we were busy doing all these other things. So I think if you are going to niche, doing it from day one, is much more likely to succeed than being, in our case, we were a decade down the path and we tried building out some of these offerings for certain verticals, like financial advisors was one. And it's just really hard to pick up steam. The thing I admire about what Maddie and Jonah made a decision to do when they started was they started niche. And then they kept themselves niche by being disciplined and not letting themselves, even though Maddie is a phenomenal entrepreneur, it's really easy as an entrepreneur to go, of course we can solve that. Of course we can do this. Oh, absolutely, we can sell that. And they were disciplined. And I think they've certainly reaped the benefits of that. I mean, we're close to 50% profit. And so
that's amazing.
It is remarkable. And it's a testament to their ability to stay focused and not let themselves, go chase rabbits, at every new idea. And been part of some really large businesses, and we didn't do anywhere close to the kind of, net operating income that Boost does because of lack of focus, And so while I wouldn't go as far as say as everyone should do it, now having experienced it firsthand, kind of on both sides, there's a lot of value to niche, especially if you're that entrepreneur. This is half baked, so maybe I'm missing the mark here, but especially if you're an entrepreneur that isn't enamored with big. If you get enamored with big, you can tend to struggle being niche because it is a slow process. It's much easier. If you're just thinking of a service business like a marketing agency, it's much easier to go get 50 clients that do 10 different things than it is to go get 50 clients who do one thing. It just takes longer. You got to build credibility. You got to build relationships. The pond is a little smaller than if you're attacking 15 different kind of industries or verticals. So it requires, I think, more patience. And then oftentimes contentment with size. Like one of my biggest lessons, having reflected on, my years at Primitive, is I was so enamored with vanity metrics. I literally remember this conversation I was having. I was in a Lyft ride in Austin, and I'm driving from the airport to Georgetown, and I'm back of this car, and I'm on Instagram, and I see all these Elon Musk this and Elon Musk that, and you look at these big numbers, and you just get enamored with how many employees we have, and what's our top line revenue, and our office. Again, all good things, not bad things. But if those are your metrics for success, it's going to be a real challenge. And so I had to learn that the hard way. And I think the whole vanity metrics things, if you're obsessed with vanity metrics, you will make really bad decisions and it'll impact your business. And I lived it firsthand. And so it just sounds obvious. It's like your listeners are probably thinking, how has this guy had a shred of success? But when you get really enamored with how many employees you have and how big your office is and what your top line revenue is, and you get kind of obsessed with those things, they start to drive all your decisions, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, let's hire this employee. Now we have 51. Oh, let's hire this person. Now we have 52. And so you got to be really careful. And I kind of come back to niche. I think being a focused, having a focus, I think helps you clarify and reduce the number of distractions that can take you off path. So it's been a good lesson, kind of learning lesson for me. And I'm certainly not to credit for it. It's all because of the, decisions Maddie and Jonah made over the last 7 years. And now I'm getting to build on that foundation.
I agree that niching isn't for everybody, but that the discerning is for everybody.
Yeah.
It is I think the point of all of that, and the point of that book, the Small Giants book, is to discern, take time to think about, what do I really want out of this business? Because there's so much, it's a lot like, when you go to school, everybody's first semester of college, 50% of them are pre-med majors, because their mom and dad are like, yeah, go be a doctor or a lawyer and you're going to make good money and that's successful. But is that what you want? Is that, the hours, the dedication, not getting to get paid for 10 years out. Like, is that really what you want? And I think as a business owner, that's important to discern from the onset is, what do I want out of this business?
Yeah, that's so good. I used to work for many years with these two coaches. They're business partners. One is the CEO, one's the COO, visionary integrator. They ran on EOS, which is phenomenal.
Yes.
And they were my coaches, and they were both on every call. And Julie, the COO, she would always say this phrase, do you want what that means? And so we'd be making decisions, we'd be thinking about things, and she would always say, do you really want what that really means? And so your point there, I think, is spot on. And oftentimes we can be so short-minded, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to go become a doctor because I want to make a lot of money. It is just kind of stop there. But there's a lot of things downstream from that, like 10 years of school, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, hours worked, family balance. So yes, I love what you're saying. And I like how Julie always phrased it is, do you want what that really means? And it's an important question to ask.
Absolutely. And that's the vanity metrics. That is easy to fall into. Comparison is the thief of joy.
Mm-hmm.
And really discerning through that is hard work, but is such a need. I mean, you've alluded to this, but Primitive is an amazing marketing company that you and your partners built, and it has an amazing reputation of doing excellent work. But through that, like, you learned something about yourself and you've grown, and now you are much more of a mature and more effective leader for the new company. And it's a completely different lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope so. I think that's the way life's supposed to work. I think the two most important things for an entrepreneur, a small business owner, is really two things. Just relentlessly showing up over and over and over and over again, and then self-awareness. And if you just keep showing up and you're self-aware in the success and in the failure, and you're willing to look in the mirror and see some of the good, but also see a lot of the bad, it has a way of moving you forward and helping you kind of chip away at your goals and objectives. But you can't do that if you quit. You can't do that if you give up prematurely. And so that relentlessly showing up and just staying power, right? Just continuing to stick with it is really critical. But if you're not looking in the mirror and self-aware, some really bad things can happen. And I experienced that, just things that I think I lost grip on and self-awareness of, and they just kind of slowly deteriorate and chip away at your character and in your integrity. And we have all kinds of examples of that in Lubbock with some pretty high profile, leaders who built these gigantic companies, had huge public personas, and over the course of time just lost awareness of who they were, or where they were going, or why they were doing things. And they had, big public, everyone kind of saw it, failures. And I had something I think very similar. It was not because of ethics or, criminal activity. But you lose awareness of who you are and what you're doing and who you're becoming and why you're doing things. And you'll wake up after 3 or 4 years not realizing that you've lost, grip of all that. And it's very, very, very difficult. And that's exactly what happened to me. I think I got enamored with my own success, enamored with what my reputation was. You start to get wrapped up in that stuff, and you begin to really lose sight of, why are you doing this? Who are you? What's important? What are you really trying to accomplish? Who are you really serving? And it impacts the way you make decisions. And then, downstream from all that can be some pretty severe consequences. And so it's kind of weird sometimes. I think people think that, maybe I did something like, I don't know, embezzle money, or I don't know, whatever it is. It's just kind of the easy thing to think. But for me, it was like a 3 or 4 year journey of getting, kind of enamored with the wrong kind of thing, and it chipping away at my character and integrity. And And I think God in his kindness, it says in the scriptures, he disciplines those who he loves. And I think that he got to a place where I was not hearing him and I was not responding to, his call to course correct, to adjust. And so he said, okay, I'm going to take the thing away that you love the most. And if you've ever started a company and you've ever, built a company and put everything you had into it, it feels like a marriage or a child. And so by God's grace, I don't know what divorce feels like or losing a child is. I assume losing your company after 11 years is probably similar to that. And I think, so he took the thing that I loved the most and thankfully, I think showed me, just a lot of lessons, just places I went wrong, things I believed that just didn't honor him. And so I'm very grateful for it. I wouldn't do it again, and I wouldn't undo it. Just because of the things that he's done and shown me and hopefully I can use, in the future. So I'm very grateful. I spent probably, I don't know, I would say about 18 months just kind of reflecting and trying to not waste the opportunity to get better. Like really for a few weeks, just like anger, bitterness, frustration. How am I going to rectify this, get back, burn the house down, like very competitive. So, that was my first initial response when everything was kind of finalized. And then I think God in his kindness said, nope, we're going to do some work here. And so he did that. And so for like 18 months, just reflected on, it's really about a 4-year period of time that I just looked back and, there was these 8 lessons that I wrote down probably 50 and distilled them down into 8 that I thought were just remarkable gifts from him that were like, okay, if you take these things serious moving forward, this will honor him and this will be for your good. So I'm very grateful. I wish it wouldn't have got there. That I would definitely not prefer that method again, but I am immensely grateful for the lessons learned and the work God has done, through loss and suffering, and wouldn't trade it for the world. Although I didn't enjoy it and would like to not ever do it again.
I'm sorry you had to go through that. That
self-inflicted wounds.
I know, but it doesn't go without saying that, like, I'm sorry, man.
Well, I appreciate that.
Like, business is hard. And I think, we've talked about your gifts and the wiring, how God made you. And it wouldn't be a good steward of those gifts to not pursue what you've pursued. And at the same time, one of the weight you have to carry is keeping that in its proper place.
For sure.
When you have something that you've poured yourself into, you've woken up night after night after night with your head in your hands, how are we going to fix this? And you fix it. And your identity can be in your business and it can become an idol very easily, and that's super, super common.
Yeah.
And I think being able to hold that with an open hand and examining yourself, examining your heart at all times, because that's the burden we have to bear as entrepreneurs. Like, God wired us to go be creators to help solve problems for people. And you've got to hold that with an open hand and pursue him. And that is not easy. That is super hard. And I have a million questions I want to ask, but one, what safeguards, what things do you have in place in your life today to keep you from repeating that?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. And I'll just share the 8 lessons I learned because I think they are the safeguards. I mean, first of all, I think that if there's a small business owner or an entrepreneur or really anyone listening to this, I think these are likely applicable, at least a handful of them, to probably all of us. There's probably something that you would relate to and maybe look at and go, yeah, I need to be aware of that. But then you ask, what are the safeguards? And I think the safeguards are these lessons. I mean, the first thing that I reflected on and feel very convicted about was, I remember when we first started our company, it really was, I read this book called Every Good Endeavor by Tim Keller, which is a theology of work. It's phenomenal. Really changed my life. It was the first time I realized I was an entrepreneur. First time I didn't feel guilty for loving to work or working hard, and saw it as a unique way to serve God and to serve others. And so initially, I think everything that drove us was a desire to love him, serve him, and love others. And I think he blessed that. And I think it worked. I think somewhere along the way, I lost track of that. And I really became more focused and hell-bent on building my own kingdom versus his. And so number one lesson I learned is I wasn't pursuing Jesus. I mean, I think my pursuit of Jesus just kind of faded out. It was like kind of Christian in name only, going through the motions. But there was not a love for Jesus and his kingdom, and it reversed itself and became a love for self and a love for my own kingdom. I remember even using for years this language of building my kingdom, like I'm building a kingdom, this business, that business, this business, that business. It's ridiculous in hindsight, but that's by far the biggest lesson. Second was focus. Just totally getting distracted. I mean, at one point in that 3 or 4 year phase where I just kind of lost my way, I mean, I owned like 7 or 8 different companies at one time. Some were small, some were not small, and some really needed my attention, but they didn't get my attention because my attention was over here. And so huge mistake of just not focusing and really convincing yourself you can do more, than what you can do. Third would be contentment. No, it was never enough. I remember when I first moved here 14 years ago, my annual salary was $42,500. And it's just, nothing was ever enough. She's like, make 75, it's not enough. You make 100, not enough. You make 150, not enough. You make 200, not enough. Make 400, not enough. Make 500, not enough. I think this lack of contentment, it will just send you, deeper and deeper and deeper, right, into pursuing things that may not even be for your good. I think that one of the fourth lesson was an abdication of leadership. I think I'm really good at building teams. I don't think I've always been really great about supporting those teams or leading the leaders. I think I'm really good at building a team of leaders. And I think there for a while, I really got disengaged from leading the leaders. And that was just a huge lesson that, okay, yeah, you can be great at building teams, but if you don't then lead the team, what good is it that you built the team? And so because I was not focused, I feel like I abdicated leadership. I gave too much responsibility and accountability to people who didn't ask for it, didn't want it, didn't need it, lost track of where we were going, and so therefore wasn't contributing in my unique way for their good and the team's good. And so that whole abdication of leadership, was a hard one. Finances and profitability. I said a million times, I'm good at making money and spending money and don't want anything to do with the in-between. And it's such an immature thing to say. I mean, how ridiculous is that, to be someone who owns a business who says, I'm good at making it, good at spending it, don't want anything in between? That's so immature, so unwise. And I said it so many times over a decade that's how I lived. That's how I practiced, right? And so that's the surest way to have a business that makes a lot of money and makes no money. And so that was a huge lesson. And then the intermingling of personal finances and business finances. I'd created a lifestyle that depended on the business doing well. And so I made the business a slave to my lifestyle and vice versa. So if there was a crack in either of them, it just created a tremendous amount of stress and anxiety and poor decisions. And so going back to contentment, things like that. So huge lessons learned there. Lack of accountability. Had coaches forever. For like 10 years straight, I had a coach and then just stopped having a coach. And so lost that accountability. Certainly would listen to people and I like to learn, but kind of go through one ear and out the other. So that lack of accountability was the 6th lesson. 7th, made the business about me. I used to say, and it's just embarrassing to say even now, I'm primitive and primitive is me, because that's the way you felt and that's what people would say. I mean, even a year ago, I was playing pickleball and a guy goes, man, I recognize you. And he goes, oh, you're primitive. And that's kind of the persona I had created. It's like, oh, I'm primitive. Primitive is me. That's when you have a team and you have business partners and you are a real company, that's not how it works. And I never psychologically or emotionally and meaningfully disengaged from that. And so for years, it's just like, I thought too highly of myself and thought I was more of the business than what I was. And that's very dangerous. And so you make decisions based on that. You put up safeguards, listening to other people if they start to encroach on that, territory. You make, decisions indifferent of how it impacts other people. Cause you're like, well, I don't, you would never say this, but the way you operate is like, well, I don't care. This is mine, and if it's mine, I'll do what I want. Well, it's not yours and you can't do what you want. And so that's very dangerous. And then lastly, just an unhealthy relationship to people. I didn't do this intentionally, but over those 18, 24 months of reflecting on it, I saw this pattern. And I actually wrote down like a list of like 13 people where I hired them. They were part of the team, had a great relationship. Something went wrong. I wrote them off. They took another job and I haven't talked to them since. How's that healthy? And so this pattern of like, again, you don't set out to have an unhealthy relationship with people. But that's exactly what I did. It's exactly what happened. And so you said, what are your guardrails? Those are my guardrails. And so I'm constantly aware of my desire for more money, more jobs, more creativity, more businesses, more whatever. And I was just never would have been mindful of those things, prior to 2022. And so failure is the best thing to ever happen to me. You mentioned I ran for public office. I got murdered in that, election. So that was the first time I'd ever like kind of failed publicly. I'd failed privately plenty of times. But running for office it's a weird deal, because it's just such a public thing.
Yeah.
And then all this, started falling apart right after that. So there's a couple of years of humble pie, and I'm very grateful for it. But those are the things I learned, and those are the safeguards now.
Wow. The humility and maturity to like sit. And I know, and you've articulated this, I know initially it didn't feel like humility and maturity. It was anger, resentment, so many emotions. But that is powerful. Like that is what business owners need to hear is, hey man, you suck. You like your ego, your everything, like you are a sinner, man.
Yeah.
And you didn't hang the moon. You're doing a lot of things wrong, and you have to continue to work on yourself and continue to grow to be a better leader, a better husband, a better father, a better follower. Man, that is good stuff. I want to get you out of here. We're past time that I told you would be. What are you excited about? What is the future? Next year, few years. What are you excited about?
I love deepening my relationship with the Lord and the grace He's given me, and the relationships in terms of friendships that hold me accountable and help me grow spiritually, and serving other men, and just building deep relationships. I absolutely love my wife, Lacey, and 2 kiddos, and traveling and being with them. I love my work and the opportunities I've been given to leverage my gifts and my skills. Those 3 things. I mean, I love all 3 of those things, and I'm very grateful. I think about them when I wake up, think about them when I go to bed. They energize me. I mean, I can see doing it for another 50 years. And so just, those 3 things, my faith, the friendships I have in my faith with my closest friends, and, all the things related to that, my family, my work, like really is, exciting, and getting better and learning from these things and being sanctified and becoming more like Jesus. And, I love what you said about ego, putting my ego to death. Like those are the things that excite me. Some days you do it okay, and some days you're not so great at it, and you try again the next day. So those are the things that get my energy going and get me really excited.
How can people get in touch with you and do business with you?
Yeah, I'm super simple to find on LinkedIn. Just, go to LinkedIn, put in Kade Wilcox with a K. That's probably the simplest way. I'm on Twitter mainly as a consumer, not a creator. Fairly easy to find there too. but LinkedIn's probably the best approach.
Man, thanks
for having me. Sorry if that was meandering long way, but it's super hard to talk about yourself. But I hope at least one of those 8 lessons encourages someone. Those things are not about me or me trying to have false humility or me trying to get, someone to feel sorry for me about losing my own company. Like, it really is just maybe someone hears that as a red flag, and God uses that to spare them, the discipline of losing something versus being aware and looking in the mirror and self-correcting. So certainly weird to talk about yourself and don't ever want it to come. Yeah, it's weird, but hopefully something in there is encouraging to someone and helps them avoid some of the serious mistakes that I feel like I made over a long period of time. So thanks for having me and giving me the opportunity to share those things. And just really appreciate you.
Man, I mean, that is the purpose of this podcast is, basically, hundreds of little biographies from real business owners making real mistakes, having some great wins, and people listen to this to learn, man.
Yeah.
Like they want, if anything in your story can help prevent one person from making a mistake, like we're doing the right thing.
That would be well worth it.
We're doing the right thing. But man, thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right. I hope you got a lot out of that. My head is spinning, and I'm just grateful for that interview. There's so much self-reflection that will come from that. And if you are a business owner and you are stuck in your business and you feel that you can't work on your business, go to our website, stagcoaching.com, and in the upper right-hand corner, click to schedule your free consultation. And in your free consultation, we can either give you a current valuation on your business and show you what you need to change to increase that, or we can work on the number one issue negatively affecting your business. It's on our website, stagcoaching.com. Book your free consultation. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next one.